Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. A few years ago, I made a video called Are You Considered Rich in the Philippines? That was about 4 years ago. And honestly, 4 years, it's a long time. Prices have changed, food have changed, rent changed, utilities changed as well, even expectations changed. So today I want to revisit that question. Realistically, are you still considered rich in the Philippines today? Just a quick thing I want to clear up first. If you're coming from the US, Europe, locals will automatically see you as rich. Um, from any first world country, okay? If you're from any first world country, Western country, especially in the provinces here in the Philippines, they will always see you as someone that is rich. That's just how it is. Yeah, I just want to insert that. So you know what to expect from the locals, especially in the provinces, the far-flung provinces. But anyways, that's not the point of this video. The real question is, can you still live comfortably here the way you expect to? Because yes, the Philippines is cheaper than any Western country. But once you try to live a comfortable life or Western style life, it's not as cheap as people think. So what does comfortable living actually cost now here in the Philippines? Because the idea that the Philippines is still cheap, especially for Southeast Asian country, is slowly becoming outdated. So before anything else, let me be clear. Yes, corruption is a big reason prices are the way they are. Yes, the Philippines isn't performing as well as its neighbors, but in this video today, it's not about politics. This is not about blaming anyone. This is simply a reality check. Inflation hit everyone, but it hit the Philippines harder relative to quality, infrastructure, and wages. So let's talk numbers in this video. Let's talk lifestyle. Let's talk what it actually takes to live comfortably now. So before people argue in the comments, let me define what comfortable means for me. Because yes, this is kind of subjective, I think. But for me, comfortable living means a well-built house. Not fancy, not even high standard building, just properly built. You know, properly built. A real kitchen where you can actually cook and maybe bake. That's my favorite thing to do, cook and bake. A working bathroom, you know, something that has flush toilet, proper shower, lavatory, a bedroom that fits at least a queen-size bed, a quiet neighborhood that is very, very important, not crowded, not chaotic, houses that are not attached to each other. A small garden, maybe for plants or vegetables, or, or just some, space away from the neighbors, a little bit distance from the neighbors. Reliable water and electricity. You can eat meat, vegetables, and fruit regularly. You don't panic when the electric bills arrives. You have some like form of transportation, scooter or old car. You can travel once in a while without financial stress. That's it. I mean, that's comfortable life for me. Not luxury, not rich, just a decent life. And for this video, I'm focusing on a province life. And I mean real province life. The kind of place that actually feels rural. Places where people are still farming, fishing, where the public market looks this, like this. Or where beef is only available once or twice a week, you know, those kinds of provinces or areas. Grocery stores look like this. You know, no imported stuff, no fancy ingredients, no real butter, no proper milk, no high quality baking ingredients. You're not finding those here. But fruits and vegetables, those are actually very good quality, mostly fresh, mostly local, and I'd even say mostly organic. The downside is supply is very limited. If you're not early, you miss out. You really have to catch the early worm because once those veggies, meats, and fruits are gone, that's it for the day. You need to wait again tomorrow or next week for the meat, something like that. So yeah, this is the kind of province I'm talking about. First, let's start with housing because this is where a lot of people are still stuck, I think. I see a lot of forums, people are asking about accommodation. People love saying, oh, you can rent a house in the province for $200 to $300. Yes, you can. But let's be honest, that kind of house is usually poorly built, bad plumbing, tiny kitchen. You know, you just have the sink And the stove, you don't even have a place or space to prepare food. Questionable wiring, thin walls, no insulation, no ceiling, maybe, I don't know. No insulation, the ceiling is very hot. No proper drainage. Could also be flood prone area or noisy neighbors. I don't call that comfortable, especially for the basic Western standard, you know. Today, realistically, a properly built house in the province, a house that is built on its own land and not the kind of apartments or houses that are attached to another house, but the kind that I described earlier, now rents around 20,000 to 35,000 per month, you know, properly built house. And yes, that's still considered province pricing. These houses usually, you know, medium-sized Filipino standard, like 50 to 80 square meters, 1 to 2 bedroom, have space around it, a small garden maybe, are in quieter areas. This is not cheap by Filipino standards in the province, but I'm sure you can still find $300 monthly rental that is properly built, but it's very rare, especially in the far provinces, that has those qualities that I just mentioned. Now let's talk food. In far provinces, you usually don't have, like I said earlier, big grocery chains. You can find imported options like specialty items. Or maybe there is one small store that sells few imported products in the whole island or within like 1 kilometer radius. So you rely on small local grocers like I showed earlier, the palenques or wet market like this one. Sari Sari store is very famous here. You can buy there the basic groceries. So just to give you basic price as well, rice is 50 to 65 per kilo. Beef is around 300 to 400 per kilo. And this price is just like, you know, the chopped beef. You can't get the special cuts like you like in palenques or in wet markets. You need to go to the supermarkets, like in the malls in the city, to get those cuts. Like, you know, the steak, rib eye, those kinds of cuts. I remember when I went to this palenque and I saw a beef bone, the whole leg of a cow. I asked the seller to cut it. I mean, they literally cut it. They literally chopped it like this with their butcher knife. And I was not expecting that. And all the bone marrow escaped because they just chopped it like that, like they're chopping a wood. I was like, the reason why I am buying this is because of the bone marrow. And after they chop, all the bone marrow is gone. But what is good with beefs in palenques in the rural areas, they are always fresh. The meat is still warm. Some of the meat are still like moving. They're still twitching. So yeah, chicken, 200 to 260 pesos per kilo. Pork is 320 to 420 pesos per kilo. Fish varies. It depends on what kind of fish you're buying. 150 to 500 pesos per kilo. Vegetables, cheaper locally but inconsistent. Sometimes they are ultra expensive. Potatoes is like 100 to 280 pesos per kilo. Same with carrots, onions, sometimes it goes up to 400 pesos per kilo or more. Fruits, seasonal prices fluctuate, like mangoes can be 300 pesos per kilo off season and 150 to 200 pesos peak season. If you cook most of your meals and eat decently, 8,000 to 12,000 per person per month. And if you like baking imported ingredients or specialty items, you're driving to the city and spending more also because those products are also more expensive. Decent cafe meal, 250 to 400 pesos. Western style food, 400 to 70 to 700 per meal. Eating out a few times a week easily adds 4,000 to 8,000 per month. Electricity is where many people get shocked. For a comfortable setup with refrigerator, fans, occasional aircon, cooking appliances, 4,000 to 6,000 pesos per month. You can reduce this if you use LPG gas for cooking. Because the LPG gas, if you're just alone, even if you cook like 3 times a day, it would last you 2 to 3 months. If your aircon is 24/7, your bill would be around $200 to $300 easily with that kind of house I mentioned earlier. You know, not just a room. So for water, if you are lucky with deep well, you don't need to pay for the water. Only it adds to your electricity because you probably have pump or a tank, a pressure tank. So yeah, that's electricity. If on water district, it's 500 to 1,500 pesos per month. Your internet is not cheap here. 1,500 to 2,500 pesos for decent connection and say another 1,500 monthly for your cell phone. And don't forget repairs, power interruptions, water interruptions. These things still exist. Fuel, 1,500 to 3,000 pesos per month. For an old car, maybe around 4,000 to 6,000. Maintenance adds unpredictability. Public transportation exists, but it's not always practical or comfortable. So comfortable living also means you're not trapped, right? Occasional trips, short vacations. So let's say you budget yourself 12,000 pesos per month averaged out. Okay, so let's add it realistically. 40,000 to 70,000 pesos per month. That's really not cheap, Filipino standard, really, but maybe that is still considered cheap for you. Yes, if you are a foreigner, Filipinos will automatically consider you rich. But like I said, that's not the point. That's not the point. Okay, so if you earn 20,000 to 30,000 pesos per month, you are surviving. 40,000 to 50,000 pesos, you are okay. 60,000 pesos plus, you are comfortable. 80,000 pesos plus, you are very, very comfortable. But rich, I mean, for me, that is rich. I don't know if for you consider that rich. For most Filipinos, 80,000 pesos, that is considered rich already. But to be honest, that is just middle class, I think. Comfortable living now requires money, even in the provinces. And honestly, sometimes, especially in far provinces, because convenience isn't easily accessible. Now, here's the part people don't hear very often. If you really want a full Western lifestyle, not just surviving or not just comfortable, then most people eventually choose to rent a house in a prime location, just like, BGC or Clark. Like if you haven't seen this video, I don't know where, a house that I featured in Clark, 88,000 pesos monthly, utility bills, 20K monthly. You can check this video out later. Like I was saying, if you want a full Western comfortable lifestyle, you either rent a house like that in that video or buy a property in a good location and build your own house. A house designed for your convenience, good materials, proper layout, a well-designed garden, reliable utilities. And yes, if you do that, you will spend roughly the same amount as you would in the West. The difference is that here, most of that cost is front-loaded. You spend heavily on the first few years. Once the house is built, you have solar power, your own water supply, reliable internet like Starlink. Your monthly expenses drop significantly. At that point, most of your spending goes into food, eating out, quality groceries, and travel. I know in the West, let's say after building your house, your spending becomes, or after buying a house, your spending becomes predictable, but it doesn't really become low. It just becomes stable and manageable. You don't suddenly feel like, oh wow, my cost of living dropped. You feel more like, oh, okay, now I know exactly how much life costs me every month. That's the difference. Comfort here is possible, but you pay for it upfront. But I think that is a good deal. That is a really good deal. So the idea that the Philippines is automatically cheap only applies if you're willing to compromise. If you're planning to move here, retire here, or build a life here, run the numbers properly. Wherever you go, comfort has a price, and most of the time, it's not cheap. If you want convenience and comfort, yeah, most of the time it's not cheap. That is why it's expensive to live in Western countries, because your government provide you convenience for your basic needs. I mean, in the provinces, people don't even have proper water supply. That's why I'm saying if you build your house, you need to build your own utility system, that so that you don't rely on the public utilities. You don't rely on the government, and then you will be okay. But then you need to put a lot of money in the beginning to have that. So I hope this video helps anyone who's thinking about moving to the Philippines. These are just general things you should be aware of. But at the end of the day, you really have to experience it yourself. Everyone's situation is different. My advice is simply don't rush it. Stay for a few months, see how daily life actually feels, and then decide if the Philippines is the right place for you. So thank you so much for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, feel free to do so, and I'll see you guys in the next one.